This week on the Eldritch Lorecast.
Roll20 purchases Demiplane.
What does this mean for the industry?
If the video game industry has taught us anything, it's that consolidating companies only leads to good things for consumers and creators.
Are you excited for Dragon Age?
It did kind of look like Fortnite, didn't it?
It did.
Dicebreaker has gone silent.
Everyone get your conspiracy cubes ready.
The next season of Legends of Vox Machina is launching on October 3rd.
All that and more right now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Eldritch Lorecast, the #1 tabletop RPG podcast in all the realms. Coming to you live from Melbourne, Sydney, and Seattle, and somewhere in New York State. My name is Ben Bird, joined by Shawn and Dael Kingsmill, James Hake, and James, I have to ask you first. What do you think of the art on the Monster Manual?
I like it. It's my favorite standard edition cover, and I don't think that's an uncommon opinion either. But I love that big Narcy beholder. I love seeing Vajra Safar, lore character, the new Black Staff of Waterdeep there. Minsk and Boo, got to get points for Minsk and Boo. That's great stuff. I have to say, I think the special edition, while still gorgeous, and I love seeing the old Emperor from Baldur's Gate 3 on there. I think it's the least exciting of the 3 special edition covers. So very, very polarized.
I agree with you entirely. I love the beholder, the way the eye stalks are moving around. There's just such a sense of motion to it. It kind of looks like, you know, when you see like deep sea squid or whatever, and their like tentacles are just kind of like flipping around all over the place. That's how I've always imagined a beholder's eye stalks to kind of work, like unpredictable movement that's like unnerving to look at and kind of squeamish. And that artwork, I think, nails that sense of motion to those eye stalks perfectly. But the alt cover is boring as hell.
The alt cover is like, it looks good. It looks fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But it does seem like a less exciting version of the cover that we got for the redo of Fandelver and Below.
Right.
Where they were like, let's redo that and we'll focus on the mind flares and we'll have the special edition cover. And that one it felt more special to me. Especially when you, like the standard edition cover, the composition of it is just so delightful. I don't know, this kind of ruined pillar that they're standing on in the center, and then having all these other like classic iconic beasties coming up around the sides as well. I don't know. I agree.
The voice of Dael Kingsmill. Shawn Merwin, what do you feel?
Sometimes I forget we're a podcast.
As Stan Lee says, every episode's someone's first episode. Sorry, Shawn, go ahead.
You might as well ask me what kind of soup I like, or even better, if I like soup. What I want to know is what are all the stats for these monsters, and how can I use them, and have you fixed CR? That's where my brain is at.
But what's important, Shawn, is do you like soup? And if so, what kind?
Exactly.
Has there ever been a piece of artwork that has made you go like, I need this book? Or are you just like Superman and sharp things? You're just immune to artwork?
It's not that I'm immune to artwork. It's just my brain doesn't function on that level. It really doesn't. I am the worst artist you could ever foist upon the world. Stick figures are way beyond my abilities. I think I dream in words. I will dream poetry, and I will wake up remembering poems from my dreams, but visual things, just nothing sticks. This
is simultaneously the most out of this world thing I've ever heard, and so on brand.
It's just the way it goes. Yeah.
Well, isn't there, there's a word for that, isn't there? For folk
lunacy?
Yes. Everything comes into crystal clear 2020 vision. The mystery solved. Roll20 purchases Demiplane. Adam Bradford's previous company, Adam Bradford, who has just recently been hired by Fantasy Grounds, which we talked about a little bit last week. Well, we might have a better idea as to why Adam Bradford decided to make that decision.
Pretty good reason. To move on to a new venture, I think. I think I get the sense he's done all he can do there, or at least that's his opinion, and he thinks he can do something cooler somewhere else. Good for him.
Yeah, as we said last week, he succeeded quite notably at his two previous positions, right? D&D Beyond being purchased by Wizards of the Coast, huge. Now Roll20 purchasing Demiplane, potentially huge, depending on a lot of pieces moving around. My question, love Adam, setting Adam aside for a second. What does this mean? What does this mean for the industry? What does this mean business-wise? Because that's a lot of content. That's a lot of partnerships coming together under one banner. And where you have lots of partnerships, you have lots of opportunities. Roll20 has a lot of partners. They sell goods from lots of different companies. Same with Demiplane. Same with One Bookshelf. In some cases, maybe exclusive partnerships or more exclusive partnerships that one might have had that another one didn't. What does all that mean for the industry as a whole, as we now have an organization that can sell content for your digital, content for your tabletop, and content for your character builder, with among not just 5e companies, but a lot of third-party games and companies. It's very interesting.
Somebody used the word consolidation in the chat. Bing, 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 bing. If we were on QI, that would be the word that would like do the bing, bing thing. Anyway.
The bing, bing thing.
Yeah, the bing, bing thing. You know what I'm talking about. The bing, bing thing.
I do know. But I also know the word klaxon, which just isn't fair.
Yeah, it is interesting that Roll20, we're having like mergers and acquisitions inside of this small industry that's not just Wizards of the Coast, like Wizards of the Coast bought D&D Beyond, all the attention around like consolidation and conglomerations within the tabletop industry is focused on Hasbro because D&D is the biggest game in the industry. But it is interesting starting to see some other movers and shakers start to make some moves and shakes because now Roll20 have Demiplane, and as you mentioned, Shawn, they're partnered with One Bookshelf, who have Drive-Through RPG and DM's Guild. And so they're, as they've said themselves in some of the articles surrounding this reporting, they've got the ability to sell PDFs. They have character creators. They have a VTT. And their kind of goal is to increase accessibility for folks to be able to get into any game they want as easily as possible through these tools, which is cool. Starting to glue together a little bit into one place.
If the video game industry has taught us anything, it's that consolidating companies only leads to good things for consumers and creators. I, for one, am excited about this huge development.
Look, for the record, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I don't want to come out and be like, how dare Roll20, purchase things. Like, it makes sense for their business that they've got a VTT. Let's get a great D&D Beyond style solution into that VTT that people love to use. Its reputation is that it's very accessible and easy to use. So it makes sense for them. But, we'll see where we are in like 2-3 years from now. We'll see what the landscape's like.
I'm going to start referring to that voice that you do as your mover and shaker voice.
All right, cool. All right, fair enough. Yeah. On the flip side of this, Adam has come out saying that the goal when he joined Demiplane was to build something great that would eventually be acquired, and then he would move to his next adventure. So according to Adam, this was always the plan, was to kind of, that's what he does. He builds things, and then he says goodbye, and he lets them go because he loves them so much. So I look forward to Fantasy Grounds being purchased in a couple of years.
Tom from MySpace of the tabletop industry.
Great analogy.
Thank you.
I'm just excited to see what Adam does next, honestly. Like, I don't know what he could do for Fantasy Ground that's as exciting or medium pushing as what he's done with D&D Beyond and Demiplane. Like, his imagination exceeds my own in this regard, and so that makes me very giddy.
Well, again, coming from Bradford themselves saying, and these caught my eye, their initial priorities with Fantasy Grounds is to increase ease of use and establish a polished visual identity. And I think, honestly, that was a lot of the success of D&D Beyond and then Demiplane, is that D&D Beyond was incredibly easy to use, but its visual identity as well made it kind of easy to navigate and access. Whether it's Fantasy Grounds, as we talked last week, and Foundry, and a lot of these heavier load VTTs have a reputation, justified or not, of being intense, and kind of impenetrable, and you have to learn programming to be able to use that. Like, that's not true, but that's what it feels like. And so I think there's a lot of room for Bradford to make Fantasy Grounds more broadly appealing for folks who might have wanted to use a VTT but found it kind of intimidating initially, and so were just using Demiplane or D&D Beyond first, or like D&D maps or something.
Well, I mean, a lot of VTTs in the pursuit of being powerful and having a million functions do kind of sacrifice in accessibility. Whereas accessibility is kind of it seems like that's like his bag. Like that's what he excels at. So I don't know. I think it could be cool.
Yeah. And what's more important is he knows the people he has to hire to do the things he needs to do. Because you can have all the vision in the world, but if you're not working with a team of UI designers, programmers, etc., who can actually carry out the thing that you are envisioning, then you end up with a mess. And I come to that conclusion, speaking from experience in the software industry. So that's just as important. Having an eye for the people who can do what you need them to do and reach the goals that you set is just as important as having the vision in the first place.
Dael, slight tangent. Tell me about Dragon Age. Are you excited for Dragon Age?
Look, I have a lot of feelings. So this is not relevant. Welcome to Dael's Dragon Age corner.
It's dragons. It's relevant.
I guess.
Yeah. People like Baldur's Gate.
So Dragon Age, the fourth Dragon Age video game, like mainline video game, has been in development for a long time. Lots of things have happened along the way that made its existence uncertain. But then they just announced, they're like, it's coming out this year. It's coming out. And then now they've very quickly changed the name of it from Dragon Age Dreadwolf to Dragon Age The Veilguard. I think it's a worse name.
Me too.
Personally. And the trailer, there was the sort of cinematic teaser trailer to sort of announce the characters came out a few days ago.
Get the team together.
I didn't love the trailer, but I'm not about to condemn the game based on the trailer. I feel like this trailer where it's like just a snippet of each of the characters is never or is rarely indicative of what the final game will be like.
Sure.
For me, it was just like, it was kind of, I don't know, leaping through the characters too quickly. I felt like I wasn't getting a good grasp of what they looked like. And I do think people are right that it did kind of give off the vibe of a battle royale video game. Like, it was trying to sell itself that way.
It did kind of look like Fortnite, didn't it?
It did. So I'm looking forward to seeing more trailers, perhaps gameplay trailers. I'm just saying. I mean, meanwhile, on the other side of the fence, the Until Dawn remake had trailers released recently as well, and they've trashed my girl Emily's hair. So I'm being attacked on all sides. But I am continuing to be hopeful.
Just tilt controller to fix hair. Is that the new Until Dawn's?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It'll
great.
be good.
Yeah, I didn't watch the full trailer. I kind of caught snippets of it, and I was like, that looks like Overwatch, but in Dragon Age. They're doing cool things. They're flipping around. It's very superhero-y. It looked very like modern D&D. You know what I mean? Those characters looked like they could have come out of the player's handbook. Not an indictment or endorsement either way, but you know.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's your little video game corner for today.
That's Dael's video game corner.
Go with me on this. This is a little story that is not at all a conspiracy, because all this information is readily available online. And yet it felt like I was unraveling a conspiracy as I dove into this, because a website, a tabletop RPG news website called Dicebreaker, has gone silent. And this was a little mysterious to me, because before we record the Lorecast, a little look behind the veil, so to speak.
The veil
maybe the veil guard, like standing to the side to let you through. Each week, like before the Lorecast, I'll go and try and gather up as much news as I can from different tabletop RPG journalistic websites. EN World, Dicebreaker was one of them, Wargamer, comicbook.com, all those sort of places. I read those articles to kind of gather the information. And Dicebreaker just stopped uploading articles. And
Everyone get your conspiracy cubes ready.
Right? Get your conspiracy cubes ready. I was like, what is going on here? What has happened to Dicebreaker? Well, as it turns out, here we go. Go with me on this. Dicebreaker was part of the Gamer Network family of digital brands, i.e. websites, journalistic mostly, which include GameIndustry.biz, Eurogamer, Rock Paper Shotgun, VG247, and Dicebreaker. They're kind of packaged together, owned as a sort of conglomerate. Well, they were sold recently. ReadPop, who is a company that is responsible for running PAX, but they also do a couple of other things. They owned those websites. They bought them in 2018, owned them for a few years, and has recently sold them to IGN Entertainment. IGN Entertainment is a division of Ziff Davis, which is a media company that has owned kind of journalistic websites, both in video games and I would posit probably tabletop RPG space as well before. IGN Entertainment also owns IGN, the website, Map Genie, How Long to Beat, and Humble Bundle. Now, of the purchased websites, GameIndustry.biz, Eurogamer, Rock Paper Shotgun, VG247, I'm probably pronouncing that one incorrectly, and Dicebreaker, they were told, don't worry, this will be okay, this will be great. All these websites apparently were doing well for themselves. Their readership was doing pretty good. And yet, almost immediately after they were purchased, layoffs began, or redundancies began. Employees across the network were assured that there'd be minimal cuts. Not the case. A lot of these websites work or function within the UK. It seems to be mostly staff working outside the UK are the ones mostly affected by this, although staff inside the UK have also been affected. And all of this is to say that as of now, as far as I'm aware, the fate of Dicebreaker is not currently known. No one from Dicebreaker has been formally announced that they're no longer employed, but there have been some fairly grim tweets from Chase Carter and Liv Kennedy, two of the journalists on the staff there. So it looks, I don't know, they haven't done an article in like 3 or 4 weeks at this point. It doesn't look great.
If you go into the Dicebreaker offices, actually, all the dinner tables are set and the meals are half eaten, but there's just no one there.
They just disappeared them. That's what it kind of feels like. I'm not going to lie.
Don't worry. Another corporate consolidating merger will just make better prices, cheaper for all consumers. You get better content more regularly. And there will be more big movies every year and fewer smaller ones. It'll all be good.
This sarcasm brought to you by Jane Take.
I have to joke, otherwise I cry.
It's like Imperfect Cell just got in there and drank them all up or something.
Nice Dragon Ball cut, Ben. Good.
Look, honestly, Horrible Cabbage inspired that one in the chat. As soon as I read Pile of Empty Clothes, I was just like, that's like Imperfect Cell.
You didn't go to the Rapture. You went to Dragon Ball Z.
Hey. Dragon Ball Z.
You've all taken my classy Mary Celeste reference and you've turned it into Dragon Ball Z. I will not say Dragon Ball Z.
You just did. You just said the name correctly.
I will not compromise my morals.
Anyway, that sucks. So, hopefully folks that are being made redundant at Dicebreaker and these other websites find somewhere to land. I know Chase, who I name shouted out a moment ago, is part of the Rascal team. So hopefully they're at least have some security in terms of where they're going to land. But yeah, look, I ain't got much else, but like thoughts and prayers. Speaking of thoughts and prayers, if you're a fan of Vox Machina and Critical Role, your thoughts and prayers have been answered because the next season of Legends of Vox Machina is launching on October 3rd. Woohoo!
Woo!
Dael, did you finish season 2? I
didn't for some reason, and I can't remember why. I also haven't seen the new trailer yet, so I need someone to describe it for me with their words.
Well, it's not a trailer. It's the new intro.
The new intro.
Yeah, it's much like the old one. There's golden thread kind of flying through the sky. All the other characters fade away momentarily, leaving Keyleth on their own. And apparently this is a sad reference to something. Grog does a thing where he punches.
It's a reference to the fact that she's going to outlive everyone.
Oh, right. Gotcha.
I would assume.
Yeah.
Which was a thing that the fandom talked about a lot.
Not this season. Spoilers. Grog punches his fists together and he looks angry. And then he like flies through the air to punch a thing.
By the way, what I said was not a spoiler for the series for anyone who is still working their way through campaign 1 of Critical Role. It's a reference to the fact that just ancestry-wise, she's
a spoiler for an 18th level druid feature. So if you haven't read the player's handbook, spoilers. Sorry.
Yeah. Spoiler for the 2014 Dungeons and Dragons PHP.
Yeah, cool. All right, well that's that. Woo! We have announced the Diana Jones Awards that are the winners announced around Gen Con. The nominees for this year have been announced. And, you know, awards are awards, but these are just a list of cool things to know about, I guess, is the way that I was looking at this. For folks that don't know, who weren't fans of the Lorecast last year when we talked about this a little bit, the Diana Jones Awards is a very, very eclectic award that is handed out to people within the tabletop RPG space or organizations within the tabletop RPG space or concepts within the tabletop RPG space. I think the concept of a live play won a couple years ago. Not a specific live play, like not Roll20 or Dimension 20 or Critical Role, like just live plays as an idea. So that's how eclectic these things get. So really, this is just a list of cool things to know about. Starting with, and I apologize, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Amy Bayo is the first nominee, a game designer and owner of Pink Tiger Games. Amy's games, such as You Think You Know Me, encourage players to bring empathy and compassion to the gaming table. They're, I believe, more about kind of the celebration of joy and personal connection with each other at the gaming table, as opposed to like fighting monsters and taking treasure. Does anybody know? Anybody fill in some blanks here? Like, know more about this stuff or about Amy's work specifically?
No, this is brand new to me.
Yeah, You Think You Know Me sort of looks like an apples to apples sort of game, only you are playing cards to show how well or how little you know other people who are playing. So you might play a card that says, my favorite pizza topping is blank. And you play it on a particular player to show that you know that person well enough to know what their favorite pizza topping is. And, you know, things like that. So more of a positive, making connections to people rather than, you know, some of the darker games that have become fun party games where you just come up with the most horrible things you can think of. Not to call out any games on that, but, you know. So it looked like from my little bit of research, there was a lot of that sort of, as you said here, sort of empathy and compassion, sort of more making connections with people rather than other types of emotions that some of these card games will bring out in folks.
Yeah, gotcha. That's good context to have, because that now I'm like, oh, that sounds like a fun game. Because you're right.
Yeah.
To call out that specific game, Cards Against Humanity, hilarious. The first like 3 or 4 times you play it.
He didn't call it out specifically. You did.
But this sounds like, you know, how many times are you like, you know, with a friend who's scrolling through TikTok or a partner or whoever, and like some like, you know, how well do you know each other quiz kind of comes up, and then your wife gives you a wry look and says, how well do I know you? And then like you do the quiz and it's like a 3-minute thing and you all have great fun. I do often
experience this with my wife.
Yeah, great. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I thought so. That seems super fun. That seems like a really cool little game for friendship groups to kind of dive into. Secondly, another nominee, Adepticon. Folks that don't know, arguably, I believe this is true, but I'm not quite sure. Arguably the world's largest wargaming convention specifically. I'd love to go to Adepticon one year. I don't have any reason to go to Adepticon aside from being a fan, but maybe I'll get over there at some point. Engaging attendees in all parts of the hobby, including painting, sculpting, obviously wargaming, and also have support multiple charitable causes through the convention, some in honor of past attendees. Has anyone here been to Adepticon, have interest in going to Adepticon, like War Games?
It is generally around the same time as some other conventions that are more role-playing game focused. Why do I have a feeling GaryCon and Adepticon were like on the same weekend?
You could be right.
Along with like PAX East and even another convention maybe on the West Coast. But it's definitely for wargamers a big convention. I feel like it was in Chicago for some reason this past year, but it is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 2025 on the weekend of March 26th through the 30th. So if you want to attend and you are in the Milwaukee area, there is a convention for you.
I'm not in the Milwaukee area, but I still may attend.
Ben, I don't play war games, but I'd love to learn to play war games with you. They seem like a lot of fun.
Oh, you next time we're around, probably it would have to be Melbourne because it would be hard for me to take my war game somewhere else. But you know what? Yeah, all right, we'll figure it out. But I love teaching people war games.
Yeah.
I played a war game just last night. Dante and I played. It was great. I got crushed, but that's okay. It was a learning game. At least that's what I told my wife, so she didn't judge me. Speaking of judging things, Fastival has been judged to also be worthy of the Diana Jones Awards. An RPG and board game convention in Denmark, which is 100% volunteer-driven, as opposed to a lot of conventions are very volunteer-supported, but nevertheless still run by companies or organizations, sometimes for profit. This one is 100% volunteer-driven and has seen a rise of, and again, maybe Shawn, you can shed some light on this, Danish freeform style RPGs, which are apparently like a one-shot adventure role-playing game, one shot by design.
Does anyone else have heard the term Jeep form?
Jeep form?
Yes. Okay. I first heard this maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and it's a sort of free-form role-playing game. So think of a LARP, but with some tabletop role-playing game elements. There, a very specific subset of that freeform has been called Jeep form, and it's Nordic inspired because many Nordic role players were the ones that really captured what it means. So it's much, from what I've heard, it's very rules heavy, but still freeform and very. What's the word I'm looking for? It's very specific and concrete. So you will role play, but there are a game master, for example, may be watching this and you're all role playing, and all of a sudden we'll say soliloquy and we'll point to you. And then you must deliver a soliloquy to the entire game.
Now that is very Danish.
Right. Alas, poor Dael and Dael's wife. So, or the game master will be watching things happen and go over and whisper something in your ear. And then you have to take that direction and go with it. So there are, some very specific elements that make it its own subgenre of freeform role play.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds cool. It sounds like how we would have written a play in university.
Mm-hmm.
What?
You not have this, Dael? When you were in like a drama school where like you'd have that one drama teacher who was just kind of like, off the wall a little bit and would be like, when you write a play, you don't sit down with your laptop and type. You stand up, get on your feet, start acting out, start doing things, make things happen.
The wall one was a movement teacher. So it was less focused on creating a play, more on like, I don't know how to describe it. Let me just say it was like, those Muppets that are like just the aliens that go.
Yep.
Oh,
yes, yeah.
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, mine was kind of like that too. No, yeah, no, we had that too, but we also had this idea of like, I mean, the kind of content that he would create was not naturalistic in any way. It was not typical. It was kind of strange and very movement based and very like slow and methodical kind of visual concepts rather than like a story that you would watch.
Right.
But he would still encourage us as young people who watched movies a lot growing up and were kind of trapped in that create a story style of theater making to just stand up and talk to each other and improvise scenes and then drop in ideas and see where it would go, you know?
That sounds a lot more interesting than the generative performance classes that we did.
Okay, fair enough.
We had largely teachers who wanted to crush our spirits and not foster them.
Yeah, I was going to say, we never did any of this sort of like learn by doing stuff. They put us writers in a dark room and told us to write Shakespeare. And maybe that's why I never wrote any plays.
Well, have I got the role-playing game format for you to form better habits? That is I've got Danish freeform written here, but what did you say, Shawn?
Jeep, Jepp form. I have no idea where that word came from, but that was the buzzword for a while.
If it's Danish, would it be yeep?
Yeep? It could be yeep form.
All right. Also nominated for the Diana Jones Award this year, the Trans Rights Humble Bundle. This was organized by Rude Dickey, who Dante and I actually met at Gen Con last year. They were incredibly kind, showing us around the Paizo booth. But they organized a bundle of over 500 RPG items that raised over $280,000 for two organizations, the first being the Zebra Group, providing services to LGBTQ plus youth, and the Trans Inclusive Group, who are advocates for LGBTQ plus, specifically in South Florida. So some great work there. Great to see the community get around that Humble Bundle as well, folks that jumped in on that. So, yeah, great work, everyone. And then last but not least, also nominated the United Paizo the United Paizo Workers Union, the first union of its kind in the tabletop RPG industry, giving a voice to its members, apparently already advocating and achieving pay rises, benefits, enhanced job protections, which is also awesome to see.
Well done.
Mm-hmm.
So that's your list of cool things to know about. Cool. Speaking of cool things to know about, you should know the email address to email this podcast, which is, James?
It's podcast@ghostfiregaming.com.
Perfect. And if you have a question, you can email this podcast. Ask your question, and I will read them. I read them all. I don't reply to any of them. I apologize. It's only because we reply to them here when we get around to them. But I read them, and I bring them to this panel of people. And this first question, coming from Duncan, is asking, with the new RPGs, and not even just specifically RPGs, I would also kind of bundle adventures, modules, products, predominantly but not exclusively Kickstarters into this. With new RPGs such as the MDCDM role-playing game, Daggerheart, the success of what was it called? The Legends of Adventresses Kickstarter. Crooked Moon. Thank you. DC20 recently gone to Kickstarter. With the success of these all kind of seeming to come off the back of established creators in the space who usually have an established presence in terms of having a YouTube channel, a Twitch channel, or some form of kind of following in that capacity. Do you need to have one of these followings to be successful in the space of tabletop RPGs? Is that increasingly becoming the case in terms of finding success in the tabletop RPG space? Opinions,
and I believe they also sort of brought up the idea of, are these games successful because of their quality or because of the successful following that is being built, which is interesting because it's all a matter of branding, right? Like a company like DnD is not an entertainment presence in the way that, I don't know, Matt Colville or the Dungeon Coach are, but it's still just branding and successfully like getting people to recognize your sort of brand name. And it's also an interesting kind of false dichotomy that comes about because they're all like these are aspects that are different from one another, so they can't really be measured against each other. It's not like being successful at branding makes you not have a good quality game.
Correct. Yeah.
And they also influence each other. So having a quality game can influence the success of your brand, and having a successful brand can influence the quality of your game, because you have to recognize as well that a successful entertainment branch of the tabletop RPG industry, like Critical Role, they now have the ability via that following, via the money that they've earned through that, to hire experienced game designers. They have a much larger pool of potential playtesters that they can draw from. So it really does kind of get murky in the water. It isn't a one-to-one of, well, either you are successful because you are good at being entertaining on YouTube, or you have an actual quality product. It's all kind of jamming in together, is my first thought.
I agree. There's a sort of false dichotomy being created here that I'm guilty of playing into, as our off-camera text chat log will show. There's no such thing as an overnight success, and the fact of the matter is, you can build up to an immense game launch by publishing a lot of games. Yes, you can also build up to an immense game launch by spending a lot of time building up a supportive community that loves the things you create and knows your name and believes, for one reason or another, whether it's through giving a lot of good RPG GM advice on YouTube or by running a mega popular actual play series, that you can make a really good RPG. And the truth is that the only indicator of you can make a good RPG is you have made a good RPG, and even then it can be a bit dicey. So I think the only way to approach it is to look at the history of where these people came from, because no matter where they came from, they've learned something. I think that a game that comes from someone like Matt Colville or Dungeon Coach, though I haven't watched any of Dungeon Coach's stuff myself, it comes from a very GM advice focused attitude. How do you make the game easier or more fun or more engaging for the person who runs the game? It's clear from the videos they make that that's their main focus. Whereas if you look at the stuff that Darrington Press makes, like Daggerheart, etc., Candela Obscura, obviously they have a bias towards how do we make a game that is very easy to tell stories in. You don't have to get trapped by mechanics, per se. One might even maybe uncharitably say that this is how you make a game that's designed to be live streamed, though I don't necessarily agree with that statement. So just look at the history. Look at where they're coming from and look what they say they want to do and see if the history and the future match up.
The question says, are these new games successful because they're this or because they're that? And the true answer is, depending on what your definition of successful is, I would not say they're successful yet. I would say they will or have made a lot of money. I will say they are popular. They are in the zeitgeist, but are they successful? What you have to do to know if they're successful as a game is to see if people play that game. Mm-hmm. If people buy the game and never play the game, then you have succeeded in taking money from people for something that they're not going to use.
One-hit wonder.
I would not call that successful as a game designer. As an entrepreneur, I would call that very successful. Now, Dael makes a good point in that these folks who have a popular property and have made a lot of money with that are able to spend that money to hire people who really know how to design games. And that increases the chance that it will be successful. They can spend time doing extensive playtesting and hire people to review the playtest feedback and make a better game based on that. So, yes, they are successful to a point as an IP, as a venture, as a business. Will they be successful as a game? Tune in 2 years to see if we're talking about them and how we've enjoyed playing them to know if they have been successful as a game.
I think what a lot of people are seeing as well is the rise of, dare I say, I'm going to say it'd be another Klaxon word. There, I used the proper term. What did I say before? Bing bong word. Anyway, which is what a lot of folks are seeing is the rise of the monetization of parasocial relationships, right? Which is Matt Colville spent years, kind of building trust with an audience. He knew what he was talking about, and he demonstrated that he knew what he was talking about and built a sense of relationship with his audience over the course of many years, so that by time it came to the MCDM Kickstarter for the RPG, before which there were many steps. There was Strongholds and Followers, and there was Flee Mortals, and there were all these other things along the way. But a lot of those successes were, and not entirely so, and I'm only using Matt I don't mean to single him out, I just mean to use him as an example, but based off this idea that you know what you're purchasing because you know him, you trust him, you like the way that he runs his game from what he's said. The same is true for the dungeon dudes, getting into Dungeons of Drakkenheim. You want that adventure module because you've watched the dudes play through that adventure module online. And it's that same thing of like when you're a kid, you watch Dragon Ball Z, and then that's right, second Dragon Ball Z reference for the day. And then you and your brother go outside and kind of fake beat each other up because you want to like play Dragon Ball Z now, right? That's kind of a similar mechanism, is that you've watched the dungeon dudes play through this campaign. I want to play that campaign. What would it be like if my players experienced that world, or maybe you're the player? And I think that the monetization of those sorts of audiences is powerful because you have an engaged audience who likes what you're doing. We've had folks ask us before in email or whatnot, like, when is the Lorecast book coming? And it was called Strange Hollow. But
I was deeply involved.
That's not a bad thing at all. It gives content creators a capacity to demonstrate what they're capable of before the audience has to make any sort of, monetary investment. And we've seen this through Patreons be successful and that sort of thing as well. The flip side is, here comes the flip. The flip side is just being aware as a consumer when that parasocial relationship is trying to be capitalized upon. Which in its own way is not a bad thing. Everybody has the right to try and be like, hey, I have an audience. People like what I'm doing. You know what? I make this. Would you like this as well? But, just as being on YouTube does not guarantee that you are a bad designer at all. I create YouTube content. I would like to be thought of as a writer and a game designer. And so I don't, the dudes write, pretty much every word that's in Drakkenheim. And it got nominated for an Emmy last year, or it won an Emmy last year. So there is, being a content creator does not mean you are not a good designer by necessity. The flip side is like, it doesn't mean you are a good designer either. So as an audience member, you should just at least be aware and like do your research and really think about like, is this a product that I want, or, whatever.
And on the flop side of that, I got to say, also, creators have to be wary, because there's an element where it's like, I think about Heroes and Villains of Theros, which I wrote with Jeremy Malul, and it's got a lot of design stuff in there that I'm really proud of. I think we did great work, but I also have to acknowledge how much of the at least financial success of that as a supplemental product comes from people liking me and wanting to support me. And they're going, this is a thing I can buy from you so that you get my money and I can express to you my appreciation. You know what I mean? I have to, that's a thing that I have to keep in mind, that it's like, even if I make a bunch of money, that doesn't mean that I am a good designer necessarily. That It's not a one-to-one. And it's also interesting, this sort of parasocial thing, watching specifically Colville right now really trying to decouple that. He's spent, these years developing this rapport with an audience, interacting directly with them or via video or whatever. And now having to kind of tease himself out of that in the hopes of letting this product stand on its own and not just be the Matt Colville game. And the sort of difficulties that lie in that. We've also got in chat, DM Roland says, that they think that you definitely need a platform because so many designers doing amazing work doing it in obscurity right now. And I will say to that that's what platforms like YouTube and One Bookshelf and Twitter and all these things, that's where kind of a mastery of social media platforms like that becomes very valuable, because the thing is that you do have a platform. You do have a method of distribution. You just have to, that's where the sort of hard work and the sort of pre-phase of developing that following and that brand comes in, because you don't necessarily see all the work that goes in there. You don't see all the years that I was making YouTube videos with. I'm not a great example because I started on Geek and Sundry, but you don't see all the years that most YouTubers, the dungeon dudes put in where they're not getting views. You see it once they do. So yes, I do think that there is an element of like, there are absolutely designers who are operating in obscurity who should have a spotlight on them. But I think that's where kind of everyone began. Intricasso started there. It's just kind of where it begins.
And on the flippity floppity side, no one sees the time that the game designers who have succeeded put in creating something and having it fail, and creating the next iteration, having it fail, and doing the really, really hard work of learning probability and iterating on something until it's to the point where it's even starts to be presentable. And then, moving forward, because it's a lot of work there too. So all of this, I think, to say there are good games out there that you have never heard of. I could probably go out right now and I could find a Daggerheart with a different name, but with many of the same concepts, ready for you to buy right now. You've just never heard of it and never will.
Yeah,
that's just the nature of what the business has become.
We're also in such a weird place because there is the tabletop RPG industry, and then there is the tabletop RPG entertainment industry.
Yes.
We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
They're different things that look like they're the same thing, but they're not the same thing, but they are intertwined.
Yeah. Yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah, and then there's the flip side, the flippity floppity floopity side, which I've seen discontinuation around, fair or not fair, it's hard to say. But have seen some expression from designers who don't necessarily have that platform, feeling a little bit of frustration at people who have spent time building up their YouTube channel, then coming and getting platformed in other ways, like game design panels, being not people who are necessarily very published, but have large YouTube platforms that come in and start talking about game design. I don't think that's necessarily a fair thing, but it's also, I can appreciate how it is frustrating as a designer who, works freelance or works for a company and kind of hasn't got that social media mechanism on yourself personally. You've just got your networks kind of inside the industry other ways, but you feel like you're not getting the opportunities that befit your skill set because you don't have, you haven't managed to break through the YouTube kind of viewership yet. So I guess it's just another dimension of this kind of conversation.
There are a lot of people in traditional publishing or in professional illustration who will often vent in public or in private about how they don't want to become a TikTok creator just so that they can get their books published, right? What they want to do is write novels. And it's frustrating how they need to become their own marketing agent in order to get novels published. And I think the reason why that is because, the age of novel, the age of the novel being the form of mass media is on the way out, and probably has been on the way out for a long time. The age of the movie being the mass media, as Matt Colville will readily tell you on Twitter, has been out since the 60s, believe it or not, with the advent of color television. Even color television is no longer the mass media of the day. So what these now aging, these legacy forms of media need to do in order to survive is append themselves to the modern form of mass media. And that's new media. That's YouTube, that's TikTok, Twitch, etc. And so, what we're all doing here is engaging, we might uncharitably say, in a less successful field of work. And it doesn't mean a less valuable field of work, but we're intentionally not going where the money is. And so if we want to go where the money is, if we want to be known, if we want to be successful, monetarily successful, then we need to go where the money is. That's the only way to do it.
It's an interesting thing, right? Because when we talk about, trad legacy media versus new media stuff, I love that we all say legacy media now. It just made me happy.
It's a Lorecast staple.
It's a Lorecast staple.
I say it sarcastically, but yes.
You always put the quotes around it. But my dig media lecturers would be proud. But no, there's this kind of democratization of access, right? You no longer have to go through a publisher who thinks that your thing is worthwhile. And so there's a weird element where simultaneously way more people are able to find success than would have otherwise. But that success looks different. And again, as Shawn said, the word success, where we're throwing it around willy-nilly, but how do you even measure what is successful? But it really is. It's kind of, yes, it is frustrating and difficult that if you want to kind of succeed in the new media space, that you have to kind of become a brand. And I do think there is an element of that. I do think it is more difficult to find success if you don't lean in. But the other avenues that were available to you pre-new media kind of technically still are. It's just that now you can see really starkly how high that barrier to entry is. And I don't know. It's just kind of, I don't know. I'm always going to be pro new media. I'm biased on that front.
Yeah, I mean, not to say of the folks, the great designers and writers that work. I know Crooked Moon itself is being worked on by a group of designers that aren't necessarily members of the live play. I think Dungeons of Dragonheim really is Monty and Kelly writing the majority of that themselves. I don't think they have other writers in there, although they do have an editor. But I had another example that I couldn't think of. Ryoko's Guide to the Yokai Realms was kind of very, Will from D&D Shorts was on the forefront of promoting that, and that was their project. But they also had a team of people with lived experience from Japan kind of helping to realize that project as well. So there's lots of people that aren't necessarily, on camera in the YouTube space or whatever, in the TikTok space or whatever they are, but they're still, finding their own success by being able to work on great products, with other folks in successful ways. Not to also speak of, somebody pointed out Modiphius before in the chat, like Modiphius, 2C Gaming. There's so many successful tabletop RPG companies, third-party companies that don't necessarily have that sort of new media platform that are still finding success because they're pumping out, great quality products. There is
also,
still
I recognize nothing I've said is like actually helpful for someone who does want to break in.
Well, that's not really the aim of this discussion, I don't think.
I guess. It just, lean in. Niche is your friend, because if you're like, okay, but the game I'm creating is this thing, there's a gap in the market here. I'm doing a sci-fi, one-shot focused, improv heavy, I don't know, focus on those things and you will find your crowd, because that's the other great thing about the decentralization and democratization of this process is that the people who want that thing, they can find that thing. So lean into your niche.
Speaking of leaning into things, we are now going to lean into the end of the show. Boop, boop, boop. That's right. That's the end of show trumpets that start to play at the end of every show.
I think they should play at the end of every show. I think you should do that at the end of every episode.
Replace the bubbaters with slow jazz
Dante,
brass
clip that.
instead.
With just you. Wop, 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 wop.
All right, I didn't realize it sounded that bad, but now that you played it back to me, I will never do that again.
We're into the Peanuts teacher wah, 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 wah territory there, I think.
Cool. Well, for folks that haven't already clicked away from this because I said end of the show, you can come hang out with us on Twitch, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on a Monday, or 9 a.m. Tuesday, Australian Eastern Time, and then you can backwards work that from there. Warehouse Bard throwing out the gifted subs. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate that. That is, we appreciate the love.
You rock.
If you want to come get a subscription gifted by Warehouse Bard, come hang out with us on Twitch at those times.
You always say Warehouse Bard. It is every time you say Warehouse Bard.
I'm just taking a closer look again.
They come in and they give us their money. They show us their love for all of our audience, and you don't use their name. Come now, Benber.
I apologize, Warehouse Bard. I have taken a closer look now. We do appreciate it. Anyway, we got to get out of here. So my name's been Ben Byrne, here with Shawn Merwin, Dael Kingsmill, James Hake, and we'll catch you all again next week for another episode of the Eldritch Lorecast.
Wah, 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 wah.
Let's go back to the Butterbus.
Yeah.
I like the Butters better. What about a bit of both? You know, when you take like rock and jazz and you kind of throw them together.
Buddy likes the Butterbuzz better. I'm trying to create a tongue twister here. Okay.
Catch you, James.
Joey.